see okay, so everyone able to see my screen? Can someone please confirm that the screen
Yes,
is
Ram.
Yes, Ram.
Yes, Ram.
okay? Yeah. Okay. So, like I'll go to here what we are discussing last day. So, any doubts on context API? Because we discussed context API, right? We have to implement this context API in our application. Okay. So, when we use context API, when we will use context API, in what scenarios we will use? Is context API good or bad? We'll discuss. Okay. So, everyone followed this the last session. Any doubts in the last session? If no, please tell me no. Okay. Just I need of acknowledgement from you all. So we create a context, we provide the context, and we consume the context, right? So what what is the advantage and disadvantages of context, and when to use context and when not to use context? I'll let you know today. But even before that, I wanted to know whether you all understood with the concept of context API, why we are uh, using the context API. Can someone in from the team uh, explain, like just put it in simple words, what is context API?
He is used to manage uh, all the functions.
All the functions. Yeah, DP, this was expected from you. Anyone?
Share data
Please.
from components between components.
Hmm. That is between components is we share data between components via props.
Like
Um,
Yes.
without prompts, without props.
hmm. So
The
you
prompts,
share data across all the components, not between the components.
yeah, across.
Eh, yeah, across all the components, we can use the context. So, Sushmita, what is your thoughts on this context API? Did you heard? I think you know already context API. Yesterday, did you join, Sushmita?
Yes, sir. The context API is the global state management.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to create the context and provide, and we need to consume that context.
So like what is the advantage of context? Why we use context API?
So to avoid prop drilling, we use the context
Mm,
API.
correct, correct, correct. So we to avoid prop drilling, we have an issue with the prop drilling. So to avoid prop drilling, we will use context API so that we provide context at the top level, like top level of the component. Like let me show you. Mm. By the way, this is my side project I was working on to create a customized fruit bowl. Uh, like I was involved into multiple projects. Like I have my own personal projects, and I was working with different companies. Mm, and I'm also testing. Okay, so like testing out some of the AI stuff to write code, uh, like to become more productive. Okay, and so I request all of you to test, okay, to test the AI, but don't use the AI completely. Um, like you have to understand what AI is doing, okay? So I know most of you all are using ChatGPT, right? You just ask ChatGPT something and you copy paste that in our code, and if it gives some error, you again copy paste that in the chat GPT, right? That things you have to avoid. Okay. So in the end, I'll tell you like how to use AI in our projects in a better way. Um, okay, but I was deviated. Mm, Okay, let me open the project. Mm, Okay. Okay. So we provided the context, right? So we created the context here by using create context, and this is user context, user info context, where we provided at the top level. Here in the app, we provided. This is the top level. So you provide this context. So whatever the inner childs of this provider, whatever the components that are childrens of this provider, will be able to access the context. So for example, in the card component, I'm using this context by use context hook, right? I'm calling use context and giving the context that I have created, the user info context, so that it will give me the value of that context. So here I just stored in the context, I'm just sending the value as an object, but you can also send not only the properties, you can also use like uh, use functions also. Okay, you can also call, you can also define functions in the context, and you can call the functions. Okay, so let me show you one real time example so that you will understand how I am using the context in authentication. Okay, in mobile app I'll show you, but you will understand. Okay, so that why we are using that context, you will get a big clear picture. Mm, So this is a project I was working on where I have implemented all the authentication um, using the context. Okay, you need not to know the details of this project, um, but I'll tell you how I am using the context API. Okay, so here in the auth, I created a context, right? I have auth context and use context. Same code, same code. How I am using in how I created this user info context. Similar fashion, I created user context and I created auth context. Nothing fancy. So now how I am using this context, I'll show you. So you see this. Hmm. So here I created a user context, right? Again, I'm defining functions. So use memo hook, I did not explain you. I'll explain. But you see here, this user and set user. User is a value of that user state, but set user is a function. Okay. So now how I am using this user and set user by using the context that is important. So I'm also providing the user context here. You see auth context, user context. I'm providing with the values of both the contexts. So if you see the user context, this value I'm providing. What is this value consist of? It consists of an arrow function with two different things. One is the property and one is the method, like the function to set that user. Okay. So how I'm using this, I'll show you. You type use context hook. Okay. Um, use context. This is our context. You see here, I'm just calling this use context and getting the user. I can also get the set user also here and call that function. Okay. So, so I just wanted to know that we will use this context API for authentication purposes and for storing the user information. Okay. So mostly, if we want, will store user information. I think this is all orange, orange. Let me change to blue. Okay. So user information, what you will do? So when you log in, right? When you log into the application, you will get all the user information. What you will do? We'll store this in the context. We'll store the user information in the context. And you have authentication like sign in or something. So authentication, user information, and like something like language settings, theme settings. These kind of small things you can do with the context. You need not to have a Redux architecture for doing these small things. Okay. So what is Redux? Redux is also same like context API only. Okay. So you have context API. Context is also a global state management, and Redux is a third-party library for global state management. So I'm drawing a line between because there is difference in using these things. Okay, so if your app grows complex, right? If app is complex, then you use Redux. You cannot do everything with the context API. You cannot do everything with the context API. Why? Because there are lot of uh, uh, lot of disadvantages of context API. One of the main disadvantages is debugging. You cannot debug. So here you will have some debugging tools like Redux Dev tools. Okay, so let me show you that as well. So we have this Chrome extension called Redux Dev tools, right? Redux Dev tools. So how this works is when you have a React project with Redux, um, then you will able to see all the actions or state related information by using this tool. Okay, but you cannot debug this context API. You can debug this by using Redux Dev tools or by using Redux Logger. Okay, we have something called Redux Logger. Whenever you perform an action, then this will log the information. So no support for debugging. You have to work on the code to make it perfect. So debugging is hard. At least I can say instead of no support for debugging, debugging is hard here by if you use context. So that's why we will use small operations like getting the user information. Once the user logs in, we will get the user information. Okay. So do we have any other scope again getting the user information? No, right? We'll get only the user information once the user logs in. See, let's say I'm a user of any application. Um, so I will log in. Okay. So whenever I log in, in the front end, I'll get all the user information about my name, my email, my role, and everything. So once I get the user information into the app, then no need of handling it, right? We'll use that information across all the screens. So in the similar fashion, the language settings, user can choose language in the application, like English, Chinese, Japanese, or some other language. So when they switch between language, they'll use that language settings information across all the screens, right? So everything like this, we will use context API for only for minimal uh, tasks, small tasks we will do. But if your app is more complex, you will go with Redux. And Redux will give middleware support. Okay, middleware support. So I'll tell you about the middleware when we learn about Redux. But as of now, you need not to worry about middleware. So no support for middlewares. Okay. So there is also disadvantages of Redux, but I wanted you all to understand the context API. Okay, API, context API, and use reducer. Okay, use reducer hook. So this is also hook. Use reducer hook. Context API means let's assume we have one hook for context API called use context. So I wanted you to understand both of this, use context and use reducer. So I know that you already know use state and use effect, right? Use state and use effect. These hooks you know, these two hooks you know, already you know. But use context and use reducer, in which you don't know use reducer, right? You only know use context, right? So we already learned use context. So here until this point, uh, I told you the um, like disadvantages of context API. Even though we are solving a problem, we are not solving it full fledged. Okay. So we will use a combination of use state, use context, use reducer, everything. See, in this app, I've also used use reducer. I'll show you that. See here, line number 61, right? I'm using use reducer. Okay, this is my separate project. Okay, this is a real-time project. This is running project. So here I'm using a hook called use reducer, and I'm using a mixture of it. Like I'm using use reducer, use memo, use context, use state. You see, all hooks in combination of all hooks I'm using. See here, I use effect, use memo, right? So I'm using all the hooks that I am good with it with that hook. So that's why I wanted you to separate these hooks like this, so that you will not confuse in future. Use memo and use callback. These are two hooks for performance optimization. Yesterday, did I told you this? Anyone remember? Anyone remember that I told these hooks are for performance optimization? You see, use memo and use callback. These are for performance optimization. So we understand use state, use effect. Yesterday we discussed about use context, right? Use reducer also we'll discuss. Use memo, use callback. And we have one more thing called use reference. Okay, use ref. So before going into use ref, you have to understand what is the difference between controlled and uncontrolled components. Okay, controlled and uncontrolled components. Anyone know what is controlled and uncontrolled? I know you all know that there are two different types of components that we create. What are those? Function and class, right? But there is also different types of components like controlled and uncontrolled. Where we'll use this concept? Anyone know? If don't know, just enter in the chat that no. Anyone knows the that context? Sorry, anyone knows difference between controlled and uncontrolled components? We already written controlled component, okay, but we don't know about the uncontrolled component. Does anyone know? No, no, no. Yeah. So I'll tell you what is controlled component. Okay. Here we have this login form, right? This login form we created long back. So here I'm gonna zoom in. So here, what you are how you are tracking the information. See, this is the example. I'll just give a recap. Like use state, we are using the state for user info. So here you see this seventh line, user info. We are maintaining a state of username and email, and we are using these inputs, username and email, right? And when the user changes, we are changing the state of that username and email. Okay. So what I mean to tell is we are using the state, right? We are using the state to track the form inputs, right? This is what we the takeaway from this component, right? So what we are doing, we are using state and storing the like changing the state based on the input that we are collecting from the from this input element, whatever the information that user types, that we are storing in the in this state. So this is an example of controlled component. We are controlling the information with the state of the component. That is called controlled component. And that's why I told you that we already wrote controlled component, but we did not write uncontrolled component. How we will write uncontrolled component? We'll use a hook called use ref. Okay. So let me quickly give you an introduction on this use ref, even before going to the other four hooks: use reducer, use memo, use callback. Sorry, other three hooks: use reducer, use memo, and use callback. Even before going there, I'll just give you a quick example on use ref. Okay. So how you will use ref? So let me track. So here, how what I'm doing? Whenever I change that event dot target dot value, I'm assigning to a new to the state. Right? I'm setting the state here with this setter function I'm using. So this is controlled component. So the same, I'll create a form. U U means uncontrolled. Okay. Let me write like U login form. U means uncontrolled. Okay. U login form. U means uncontrolled here. So let me create a function component. Okay. Oh, so here I'll just return uh, again writing a login form. Every time this copilot irritates me. Okay. Okay, guys, are you following? Whatever I'm teaching till now, have you understood? Are we on the flow? Are we on the track? Everyone, just to alert you. See, you will all get sleep. I know by listening this class, right? So are we on track? Like where we are going, where we are stepping up. Like see, starting this class, um, I started with the context, whatever we discussed earlier in our previous class, right? And see, um, if I tell you the advantages and disadvantages of this, even before you understand the context API, does it make sense? See, I told you the differences, why we use Redux and why we use only context for doing small things, why we choose Redux over context API. So if I come and tell you directly about this, will you understand? Does it make sense? Still, if even I told you now, you don't know what is middleware, right? You don't know what is middleware, right? I cannot tell you what is middleware now because you don't know Redux. Once you know the Redux, then you will get to know what is a middleware. So that's why what I am telling you is you start understanding things and then move forward. So here, without explaining all this story, can I directly jump and explain you what is the advantages and disadvantages of Redux and context API? No, right? You should first understand what is context API. You should understand the in and outs of that context API. Then only you will get to know. Okay. So that's why I told you about this context API in the beginning of the class. Then I moved on to what is our next plan. So we already learned these APIs, these hooks, use state, use effect, use context. And what is our next plan? So we have four more hooks to understand so that we'll complete at least some built-in hooks, right? So we are on track, right? No one is getting sleep in understanding this, right? Okay. So I'll tell you, like I'm already telling you that we already created this login form component in our previous class. Just we are using two inputs, and when we submit, we have some sample code of making API call. This will not work because I did not give any URL. Just commenting it out. But you understood the point, right? Mm, like how we are handling the state of this component. So we are using the state, and whenever the user types in this component, in this on change listener, so we are changing this state, right? So now what I'm trying to tell you is we also have uncontrolled component. This is called controlled component. We are controlling the information with the state of this component. So this is called controlled component. What is uncontrolled component? When you have an input, okay? Let's say we have input. Let's treat this input as a username. Username, add placeholder as username. Okay. So we have this input here. So whenever I type into this, I wanted to show a log to you. Okay. Handle. I'm writing some change handle function. Handle username. Okay. It's typo. Let me write an anonymous function. Just anonymous function assigning to a variable like this. So just I wrote one anonymous function and assigned it to this handle username so that whenever I change this, right, on change. So should I use the state? Should I use the state here whenever on change? So here I created one state, right, for the user information. Like at least we have username here. So the same thing I'm trying to replicate. I have that user state, and here I'm changing, right? But how you will do it in uncontrolled component? Will not do like this. Okay. So how we will do? So let's create a ref. Okay. Let's call that ref as input ref. So how we'll create a ref? So we just call this user ref hook and this as a input ref. Okay. So now I'll create one button to just like add the user. So now we have this input ref, right? This ref, this one you understood. Use ref. I'm trying to import it from the React. We are importing that hook. Use ref hook from React like this. So we import this hook. We call this hook. And whatever the reference, we this is up to us. Whatever we name, we can name it. And here, what I will do, I have something called ref. You see this property, ref? So what you will do, you will just assign that input ref to this ref property. Got it? So whenever I on click this button, I'll just call a function. Like let's say we have the same thing, like change handler. So I'll take this change handler function. Okay. So what is ref actually? Similar to state, ref is nothing but an object. So now let's take this example. I'm just giving you the rough understanding of how that reference object will look like. So input ref is there, right? So how this input ref will be an object, okay? And its current property is set to this value, whatever you pass. Like let's say I pass null, something like this. So the current property will be null. So now I attached this input ref to this input variable, right? So how can I use that? So whenever I click add, I'll call this change handler function. You can also directly call that change handler function like this. No issues. You need not to write an arrow function if you don't provide any arguments to that function. So if you have this parentheses, then definitely you have to use this arrow function syntax. But you are not going to pass anything, then you need not to give everything. You just call that function. So this change handler I am calling. Whenever I submit this button, change handler I am calling. So now I have this input ref, right? So let's just write like something like this console.log input ref dot current dot value, like this. You understood? Input ref dot current dot value. Why I'm giving the value here? What value it is holding initially? This. But this ref is pointing to this. There is a connection between these and this. So this ref property, I connected this input ref to this element. Am I using any state here? No, right? I'm not using any state. Just I'm using the ref. Now let me run the project. This is the project. And okay, I have to load, I have to export this component, export default, login form, right? I exported this component. Now where should I use that component? I will use that component in the app, right? Here in the app. So also from this component, I'm writing one more component called u login form. I created one instance of that form. So whenever I type this and press enter, I need to see the console of that entered value. So if I change, right, I write some other name, let's say Raju. You see how I'm getting this value? Without state, it is not possible. But by using ref also, this is very simpler, right? You see how much code we wrote? Very small. You see how we are handling just for two inputs. We are handling the state, right? Here, we have some state logic. So if you have very less inputs, like one or two inputs, you can directly go with input by using this ref. I'm doing nothing here. Just I'm importing the use reference hook, use ref hook, calling that hook in the sixth line. Whatever the value that I get, I'm assigning it to input ref. I'm storing this here, connecting that input ref to the DOM element here. So whenever the change happens, this input ref dot current dot value will be changed. Let us also see what is this ref contains console.log input ref. Okay. I'm also logging this ninth line ref. Okay. So whenever I type something here and click add, you see what this current object is pointing to? Our input element, right? You see the input element, input. Reference is an object. I already told you, reference is the object, right? I told you, ref is equal to, it's an object where it will have this current value, current property, and you assign accordingly. So when I write like this, that means I'm assigning this input element here. Same way, we have this. Current is pointing to input element. Then whatever the value that I entered, that is input value, then you add. So you need not to do any state management. But be careful when you use ref. References are also comes under side effects. How use effect is having some side effects. Similar way, references, don't overuse refs. Okay, it is a escape hatch. I'll tell you why it is a escape hatch. You might fall into problems that you are not able to clear the things. So here escape hatches, you see effects or escape hatch and references also. Okay, so you will manipulate the DOM For example, you can focus a text input. Let us see this example how it works. So your same thing, you take the you import the ref, um, you use ref and assign it to input ref. So here you are connecting that ref with the input ref that you created here. So this one you are connecting to this input element. Now what does this current value of this reference will be? The current value will be this input. So what you will do? Input ref dot current dot focus. You can call all the functions of that uh, ref. Okay. So here I have this current input and you can call focus, right? You can call all this on drag, on change, on click, right? So you have also focus. Let us see focus. Let's see. Hmm, not able to see here. This is autofocus. Yeah, on focus. You have some things like this. You can also, if you learn some DOM manipulations and the DOM, I'll teach you in the next class. Okay. Just remind me if in the next class, if I am going to explain you something, even before that, in the next class tomorrow, just remind me about DOM manipulation or DOM. Okay. Document Object Model. Every developer should know this model. At least front-end developers should know this. So at least tomorrow's class, if I join, just give me a heads up that we need to learn document object model. You learn document object model, you will understand all these things easily. Input ref dot current dot value. So here what he is doing, um, so what he is doing here, mm, so here whenever the user clicks this button, he's calling this function. This function is setting this input value to focus. So even though when I click, it is focusing. Focus means the cursor is blinking, right? So that is called focus. So you are in that focus mode of that input element. Now I am not. But whenever I click the button, the cursor will blink because this is focused. You see, I click this button. Now it is focused. So for this purpose, we use uh, this like use ref to manipulate the DOM directly. So we don't need to do the DOM manipulation directly, right? So we actually use state, but try to avoid using riffs mostly. I don't use much of riffs. So mostly you'll have escape hatches in the effect side because side effects are dealing with the external systems. So that's why you'll get like a lot of effects synchronizing with effects. You might not need an effect life cycles. So all this comes under removing effect dependency. So end of this session, sorry, end of tomorrow or day after tomorrow, we'll also learn about custom hooks, like how we'll write our custom hook. Okay, I already wrote some of the custom hooks in my previous companies where I created a custom hooks for tab management. Let's say we have 2 or 3 tabs. So when we click on the tab, we'll change that accordingly, the information. Okay. So any doubts here in using Riff? So we completed use state, use effect, use context, and use Riff. More 3 left. Even before going to that more 3, let us see the reference of new hooks.
Hello, sir.
This, yeah, who's this?
Yes, sir, I'm Sushmita.
Hmm. Yes, Sushma.
Yeah, I have a doubt that so when to use ref and use state like difference.
Mm. So um, mostly try to avoid using the use ref. So let's say you want to handle, you don't want state. See, um, let's say you have very small inputs, like you have only one or two inputs, then it's good to use ref. Okay. Um, use ref in implementation is very simple, but mostly use the state. Okay. So here I'm using single state, right? If you have lot of inputs, don't go for use ref. You just write all the related information into a single object and you maintain the state accordingly. Don't use refs at that point of time. I think you will also see a document in the here like when to use ref. Okay.
Okay, sure.
When to use refs. Okay. So mostly when you write some logic related to timeouts. Okay. So then you use this references. So I'll tell you in advanced concepts you will get. Just I gave the introduction about the references in this class. But there are a
Okay,
lot
sure.
of use cases. For example, you want to run a timeout, like you write a set timeout, right? For example, um, where is that? Yeah, here let us assume you write one timer. Okay, like we have a use effect. This is an example only. I'm telling. This is not a complete solution. But let's say you have this use effect or some component you have. So you write set timeout, right? Set timeout or something.
Yes, sir.
Set timeout. So you write like this, or so this set timeout or set interval, whatever you call. Okay, set timeout.
Set timeout.
Set timeout. Yeah, set interval. What set interval will do? It will run. It will execute the function at a given seconds, like 2 seconds. Every 2 seconds, this function will get triggered. So if I want to stop this timer, what I will do? So instead of stopping this um set interval, okay, what I'm doing wrong? This is use effect. Oh, sorry. I have to call that use effect, provide an arrow function, right? Okay. So this is a use effect hook. So you are just calling the use effect hook and you have a timer that runs every 2 seconds. So what you will do is you create a riff for this. Let's say timer riff is equal to you use riff. Okay, you have this timer riff, right? So now assign that timer riff dot current to this. You already have that. See this timer riff dot current uh, or something like this. Okay, time riff. Okay, timer riff, right? Yeah, timer riff. So you have this timer riff dot current value is pointed to this timer. So now how you will clear this timer? So here I told like last time you should for cleaning up you should write a return function. When unmounting, just before unmounting, this function gets executed. So here you clear that interval by providing the timer riff like this. So that you will clear the timers. So in these cases, you will use mostly you will use riffs. Not only DOM manipulations, but if you want to perform some So you will run a timer. This timer will run every 2 seconds. But if you want to stop the timer, how you will stop the timer? So let's say we have every 2 seconds, this will increase. Okay. So 2 seconds completed. 2 seconds completed. So every time this is incrementing. So when you will stop the timer, right? So you clear that interval. First, you create a timer and assign the timer to this timer if current. Then you clear that. So in these cases, mostly you will use references. Okay. This I think
Like,
this answered your question. Hmm?
yes, in the timer example, we can also add the timer ID into one variable and we can also clean up that ID.
Ah, but see, there is a difference between state and references. Okay. So
Okay.
you already know state versus ref, right? Sorry, state versus props, right? But
Yes.
you should also know what is the difference between state and ref. The ref is also preserved. Okay, preserved.
Okay.
Preserved means you have some state, right? Preserved means how can I tell you preserved? Mm, like remembering. Okay, remembering. The component will remember this reference. Okay, like let's say you have a component and that component state you have and you incremented that to 4. Okay. So now what is the state value? 4. But when you refresh the page, the value will still be 4. The value will start again from 0. If this is a state, this is a state, I change the state from 0 to 4. And when I refresh, the state will still be 0. But reference is different. Okay. So I'll tell you more clear things about reference. Okay. Correct. At this point of time, even if I tell you, you will not understand. But
Okay, sir.
just this is the introduction of useref. So just try to understand the syntax, how we will call this hook and how we'll use it. That's it. But you have like so you see this one, this example.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
Yes, sir.
yeah. So same thing. Like you added this time out ID and you're clearing out. This was you're talking about this, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But I'll tell you the difference in the next class. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Mm. But at this point of time, just understand only the basic things. If you go into deeper, you need much practice if you want to understand more deeper things. So and also remind me this, Sushmita. I spent a lot of time in understanding the difference between ref versus state. Okay, so I want to have one class on this specific topic. We already know the difference between state and props, right? State
Yes.
means the component holds that information which is changeable. Props means will pass from parent to child. That we know. But we should also understand the difference between reference and state. Okay. So this is an action item for us. Reference versus state. We can also do GPT, chat GPT, and also find out what is the difference between the references and state. But mostly we'll use for timers and manipulating the DOM elements. Like the most asked interview question, like how you will focus on input, text input. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So, mm, so any questions here? I'm going to stop the session. We started by 8:40 and can stop. I hope everyone learned some new thing today that related to use this. Tomorrow I'll explain use reducer and Redux architecture. Then after that we'll learn about the performance optimization hooks. So even going to that, we'll like we'll see What are more hooks? Use context, use callback, okay, use action state. This is a new hook only, not needed as of now. Okay. Debug value not needed. Deferred value not needed as of now. Use ID not needed. Use imperative handle not needed. Is also not needed. Mhm. Yeah, at least I'll try to tell you this use transition. I'm planning to learn this use transition hook, which renders a part of UI in the background. I'll try to understand this. But let us add this hook also to our list. But now we understood uh, like at least four hooks, right? Use use state, use effect, use context, use reducer. Sorry, use ref, right? Any questions?
No, Ram.
Yeah. Any questions here? Hello?
No, Ram.
Okay, DP. Okay, are we good to drop then? Okay, I'll give you a task, okay, even before dropping. Um, so I wanted all of you. I'll just explain you the task. You just work on it. Okay. Mm, so don't make any API call as of now. Let's do something uh, like fun. Okay. So here, I'll provide you the image also. So I wanted everyone to work on this something like e-commerce app. Every e-commerce app. So you have this page, web page, right? You have the page. You divide the page with two halves. Okay. So one half you have to show a list of products. This is cached. Okay. So here this is one half, and the other half. So you have two halves. Okay, like this. So maintain two separate components. So this is complete web page. So here you will have products list. I don't care how you handle the stylings. Just I wanted you to understand the concept. So you'll have a product list. Okay. Like let's say you have something like this. You have a product. I'm just giving you an example of a product. So you have a product. Okay. So this product, just to write a product name. What should I name this? Yeah, any product. Okay, like like a Nike shoe or some product. Okay, you write your products array like this. Okay, let's take like this commas products comma set products. You take a state variable. You write like this. I'm giving a hint. Okay, use state and you give an array of objects. Each array will have ID, product name. Okay, like this. Uh, Quantity is not required. Just add a price. Okay, price. 2,000 rupees or something like this. So like this, you add multiple projects to products to this array. Understood, everyone? So like this, you write, you just add name and price here. So you will have a price like this, and you add one button here, add to cart button. Okay, just add a button here. What does this button do? Add to cart. So now this right hand side is a cart. Okay, this is a cart. So now whenever I click this add to cart button, now I want an entry. I want to show that card here. The same card. I want to show. I want to show here. Sorry, this is alt. Okay, same card here. But now I don't need to show this add card button. Everyone understood this? We'll later expand this more by adding quantity, incrementing, decrementing, and removing from the cart. Okay. But will you do this exercise? Will you do this task? Everyone understood what we are going to do? Can someone explain, reiterate what I said? Just take a web page and you need not routing anything not needed. You just click on this add to cart. Sorry, add to cart. So take two divs. One is product list, the other one is cart, and you have list of products here. Okay, you have a list of products here like this. So more cards here. When I click add to cart, this item should fall in this. Later, we will try to have a button here. Whenever I click this button, remove this from the cart. We'll do that. Okay, if you wanted to do, you can also do that. When you click this, you remove. When you click this, you add that cart, that button to the cart. So you can also, after adding, okay, let's say you have one more component. Okay, so this is add to cart. Mm, This is add to cart, and you have another item also. So let us see. Once this click is happened, just make this added something like this. This is a new uh, something like this. So whenever I click, this is added already, right, to the cart. So make the text change by conditional rendering. So everyone try this example. Okay, we call it as cart example. Okay, how many of you interested to do this example with the existing knowledge? Because if I'm not going to give the task, you are not going to work on it. So that's why I'm giving the task. Okay, can I send the screenshot to you all? Mm, mm, mhm, mhm, mm, mm. Okay, guys, I'm not getting any acknowledgement from you. Are you interested in doing this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Everyone tried. Okay, everyone messaged. Thank you so much. So what I'm trying to tell is I've shared this image. So just this is a basic example, okay? So just try it. If you don't get the output, then use some other resource like outside. But first, try to think how to accomplish this task. You have a list of products. You click on a button that will add that item to this cart. You remove, you remove that element, that item from the cart. Once the item is added in the cart, you show this, okay? And you can also use context API for this to maintain the cart state so that you can access in this component and in this component also, any component. You can access the cart, but mostly use state to accomplish this task. Okay, adding the component to the state is like you push that element into that array. Okay, yeah. Thank you. I'm wrapping up this call. We will meet again. And let me also make a list of new joiners so that uh, I'll create a separate folder, sorry, separate session for them even before we have this call every day. So we learned use Rift today. Tomorrow we'll learn use Reducer and Redux architecture. Then continued by uh, what is that? Use callback and use memo performance optimization hooks. By that, we'll complete our built-in hooks and we'll spend some time um, on creating custom hook with an example. That's all we have, and we'll learn some concepts, some advanced concepts, and how they all related to the toolings of React. We'll learn how we will integrate third-party APIs. Okay, and I think new joiners don't know how to call APIs, but existing people knows that how we can integrate APIs into our applications by using fetch and Axios calls, right? So existing like like whoever joining the class from past 2 weeks, I think we covered a lot of things in React, and we have many more to discuss in the front end side in future. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. I'll get to know more about new people since I had introduction with all the old team members here. But I'll try to spend some time with you to understand where do you stand and what is your background. And thank you, guys. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.